Welcome to Right on Wednesday. This week's word is entitled The Perfect Faulty Law. I'm in Hebrews 8, and I like the way this chapter begins because if for whatever reason there is confusion as to what the author is trying to communicate to us, he lets it be perfectly known in the first two verses. He says, "Now the main point of what we are saying is this. We do have such a high priest who sat down at the right hand of the throne of the Majesty in heaven, and who serves in the sanctuary, in the true tabernacle set up by the Lord, not by mere human beings." So, in a nutshell, God sent Jesus to be our high priest, and he serves as our mediator. He lets us know very clearly the point of what he's been saying up until this point. Now, what's said in the next couple verses is just very beautiful. I think it's an underrated thing that we take advantage of. So he's talking about God, or talking about Jesus being a high priest, but then he also starts talking about how back when the priests served in the sanctuary, they served in a place that was literally like a mirror image of what you see in heaven. So let me read verse 5. They, meaning the priest, they serve at a sanctuary that is a copy and shadow of what is in heaven. This is why Moses was warned when he was about to build the tabernacle. See to it that you make everything according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. And so when you go back and read, starting at like Exodus 25 going on up, you see God giving these very specific details of how the tabernacle was to be built. That's my baby, y'all. Normally he's asleep when I'm doing these, but he's up and down. So God was very detailed about how the tabernacle was going to be built. And it's almost like, why was God that detailed? Like from the curtains had to be blue and scarlet and purple, and the engravings on some of the buildings, it was like engraved with cherubims, and everything was overlaid with gold, and the measurements were so specific. But when we get here in Hebrews 8, you see God was that intentional for a reason. It's because he wanted the tabernacle, the place where his spirit was going to dwell, to be the copy, mirror image of how his spirit how he dwells in heaven. And so, man, that's just amazing that God would show us a glimpse of heaven through the building of the tabernacle. And we also get to see glimpses of heaven when you read Ezekiel, but also when you read Revelation. So just for an example, in Revelations 1 verse 12, I believe it is, John writes about the vision that he saw. He said he saw Jesus amongst these 7 golden lampstands. But then when you go back and read Exodus, you see that God instructed Moses to build 7 golden lampstands. So the fact that John's vision and the tabernacle that Moses built correlate, that just shows you that, like, wow, God really allowed us to see a glimpse of heaven. And that's just, that's beautiful that he would do that. It just reminds me of, sometimes we travel, we like to get away and go on vacations. And before we go, a lot of times we'll look up the hotel, we'll see how the hotel looking, we'll look into different restaurants and, just check out the scenery, and we build up excitement, right? We get excited about the getaway that we're about to go on because we got a glimpse of what we're about to receive. And so we ought to get excited, and this should produce excitement within believers because we get to glimpse heaven through these scriptures, through the building of the tabernacle, through John's vision. So I just think that's beautiful that God would allow us to get small glimpses of heaven. So yeah, that was cool. Now, the title of this article is entitled The Perfect Faulty Law. So let's get off into that. Now, I just said that the title is The Perfect Faulty Law. That sounds like a contradiction, right? It sounds like something can't be perfect and faulty at the same time. But let me read some scriptures to you so I can explain the title. and we'll get off into it. Y'all have to excuse me. I didn't get to put my marker in here. Let's see. All right, so this is Psalms 19, verses 7 through 8. The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. So you see, this is Psalms 19, verses 7 through 8. It says the law of the Lord is perfect, right? But then, when you read Hebrews 8, verse 7, it says this. For if there had been nothing wrong with the first covenant, the first law, if there had been nothing wrong with the first covenant, no place would have been sought for another. So, is the law perfect or is it not perfect? Is it faulty? Is it perfect? Which one is it? Well, for me, whenever I come across things that seem to be contradictory in the Bible, I have to remind myself of one thing. Do I believe Scripture to be true? Do I believe all Scripture to be true? And if the answer to that is yes, then I have to believe that what's said in Psalms 19 and in Hebrews 8, that both of those things are true. So I believe that the law is perfect, but I believe it is also faulty. Let me explain why. When you keep reading in Hebrews 8, verse 8, it says this. But God found fault with the people and said, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. There was nothing wrong with the law. The law was perfect, just like Psalms 19 says. The problem, the fault came in with us. And so, I'm going to give an analogy. If my daughter or my son was found guilty of something, and their punishment was death, and the law was perfect, and when they are held up to that law, they are worthy of death. But I'm their mother. Baby, let me tell you, if I have the power to call that which is perfect faulty and imperfect, to call my imperfect children perfect so that they may be saved, I'm going to do just that. And that's exactly what God did. The law was perfect. You got to see God's love and devotion and dedication to us in this. The law was perfect. In fact, God gave the law to Moses. Anything that God gives is perfect, right? But if something is in the way of God's children being restored to him, he finds fault in that. And so although the law was perfect, in God's eyes, he's like, nah, it's fault in it because it's keeping my children away from me. If I don't have a plan for my children, they are going to die in their sins and be separated from me. So, it's perfect, yes, but I'm going to deem it faulty because it's keeping my kids from me. Another thing that I thought about, when I was in college, I remember there was this test that I had it was a managerial accounting class. And I've always been the type of student that's very studious. I like to achieve goals. And when I don't, it bothers me really badly. And so there was this test that I was studying for. And up until that point, I had done exceedingly well in college. But I came across that test, y'all. I studied all I could. I did the best I could, but I could not grasp the material. It just wouldn't stick. I just couldn't understand it. And so I went in, I took the test, and while I'm taking the test, you know how it is sometimes when you taking the test and you know why you're taking the test, like, I failed. And so I was really bummed out about that. I failed that test. I knew I had failed it even before I got the grade. And the other students, also, hey, poo-poo. Hey, poo-poo. Hey, poo-poo. He's a little He's a little sick, y'all. I'm gonna try to go ahead and finish up with him being with me. And so I remember we took the test, and like I said, I knew I failed it. And when I went to class the next day, everybody in the class was like, "Oh yeah, we failed too." Like nobody did good. But what ended up happening was the professor had mercy, and he curved the grade. And so if you know anything about curving a test, it's basically when the teacher or the professor will adjust the grading scale so that those who would have previously failed are able to pass. And so God had a plan to curve salvation for us. He gave us his son. He knew that we could not uphold the standard of the law. And so what he did is he sent his son in our place. So he curved that thing for us. And so I'm just so very thankful that he did that for us. I think I had a few more things to say, but I'm just going to go ahead and end it because I got to get back to my baby. So the law, indeed, yes, it was perfect. But because it kept us away from God, he deemed that which was perfect imperfect, so that imperfect people could be called perfect. He deemed that which was perfect faulty, so that faulty people could be deemed perfect. And so that's what this week's Bright on Wednesday word is about. It's entitled The Perfect Faulty Law. This is Hebrews 8. And in closing, the last verse, it says, by calling this covenant new, he has made the first one obsolete, and what is obsolete and outdated will soon disappear. So God made us perfect through Jesus Christ. And that's all I got for y'all. Everything that I previously thought about and went out the window because I got to tend to my baby. But all right, that's it. This is Hebrews 8. Lord's willing, I'll be back next week to do another word on Hebrews 9. Y'all be blessed, okay? Have a wonderful day in Jesus' name.